Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on April 12th, 2023, at approximately 4:20. Good question. 4:25 p.m. PST. Now, I've returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my own day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the exact same philosophies I personally live my life by. With this in mind, before I get into anything, we have Shadow and Sun in the house, in the lobby, in stream, if you will, with the gold. Adam, you are in next with the silver. Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad you're so far north there, Adam. I would love to sit down for coffee with you, but if you're in Kamloops, you're another 2 hours north of us. Oh well, one day you'll get down this end of the world. Now I decided, like, I've got a lot of different things on the go, a lot of different topics to cover. But I figured let's start the ball rolling today with walk-ins. What is a walk-in? I do not mean that closet that some people have. I don't mean the customer that comes in off the street. A walk-in is a spiritual soul swap. This is not the same thing as a possession. Okay. A walk-in occurs when one soul goes, I've got to experience the first couple of years of the life, but after that I really don't need it. And somebody else goes, I'm just not interested in going through the whole diaper training thing again, toilet training thing again. I'm not interested in all the rigmarole of childhood. So I'll tell you what, you handle the body to start with, and I'll swap over. Essentially, it's a question of swapping drivers. Okay, I mean, that ultimately is what a walk-in is. What you can be dealing with is a massive chunk of memory missing, and I don't mean a couple of hours. I'm meaning a number of years. Okay. So you end up with that little problem, and of course, the other side of that is there may well be a complete personality shift. You won't notice it as an individual, but your friends and family may. I've seen some extreme cases. I know of one individual I was talking to. All his life, he had been an alcoholic and a drug addict. And when the walk-in took over, this guy had tried rehab multiple times. He had tried stubborn disposition, going cold turkey, the whole thing. But when the walk-in occurred, he woke up one morning, and instead of being a grumpy, high, angry individual, he woke up, looked at his other half, and says, "Good morning, dear." And then he turns around and asks her to get him coffee. Well, she just about fell off the bed. Can't imagine why. So, I mean, there can be some real beneficial side effects. Sometimes it goes the other way, as in a negative run. And since I've got you in the house here, let's see. Shadow is already in the house, so we're going to take this and pop up Shadow Stream. And Henry is in with the bronze. And there we go, guys. There is the link to Shadow Stream. Okay, time to take a serious look at what Shadow's been up to. Drop in, see what he has to say. If you like what he's saying, give him a thumbs up and certainly subscribe to the channel. Okay, now that said, the same frankly applies to here. If you like this stream, do me a favor and give us a thumbs up. Okay, and do subscribe to the channel. Give it a thumbs up. say share the daylights out of it as best you can. And if we do that, the reality of it all is when we take a look at where life is going, sometimes being a walk-in, and do understand we are talking for an actual walk-in, you've got to be looking at some pretty severe shifting. Okay, it's not just a case of all of a sudden, oh, I'm doing better, I've got this drive to alter my appearance, alter my approach to life. It's just there's no warning. It's just all of a sudden you go from one end to the other. Okay, picture, if you will, somebody living on the street, all of a sudden making an absolute drive to get back on their feet, and in a matter of weeks going from living in rags to and unemployed to starting their own business and actually having an upgraded wardrobe. Okay, this is just some of the extreme shifts that can happen. At this point, we're looking at a very simple issue of it's time to really take a look at your own life and ask yourself, are you happy? Now, a walk-in doesn't ask. A walk-in just literally goes, okay, this is what I'm doing. And there is no functional thinking about it. Okay, now, people have asked what walk-ins are. And a walk-in is, it's really quite simple. It boils down to changing drivers. Okay, as in the soul operates a corporeal body. But you reach a point where all of a sudden you're no longer just looking at that one little aspect. All of a sudden there's a complete shift in the approach that people are having, in the approach to life. Okay, maybe you've been a professional procrastinator. Okay, as in you never got a thing done. And then all of a sudden, everything you set your mind to, not only do you get it accomplished, but you go right out of your way to push to make it happen correctly. For me, it really boils down to this. Okay, like when you're looking at the changes that have been going on in my life, with the stuff I've been doing, it's been, if you will, a kind of gradual thing. Okay, but I'm about to, those can all go out. Okay, after this, this is Wednesday. After I'm done this stream, I will be undoubtedly moving the whole computer system to the back room. Okay, and by doing that, I'll be able to actually start working on doing my broadcast from the back end. Of course, that does kind of mean that I'm going to end up having to what's the word? Having to broadcast from my bedroom, which does have an added advantage. It means I do have to turn around and make sure I've got the bedroom sorted out. Okay, not just a question of just thinking about it, but I'll have to literally go out of my way to make it happen. What I'm doing right now, guys, walk-ins, the thing with a walk-in is this. It's not something you plan. Quite frankly, it's not something anybody plans. It's just, at least not from a cognitive standpoint. Being a walk-in, what you're actually doing is all of a sudden you're just running on different parameters. You've got different rules different goals, different boundaries. It's a complete, and not entire. It may not be complete. There's got to be enough similarity that it is still functional. You're still functionally able to keep going. And who do we got here? Shadow Adam. Henry came in with the bronze, and this means that Shade has come in with honorable mention. And Kimberly, how you doing? Glad you guys are arriving. And football. Oh. I think you mistyped that, football. Because what you've typed is I think I am a walk-in. There we go. I think that was supposed to come up as I think Keith, but I'm not entirely certain. But that's okay. We all have problems with typing periodically. Yes, I do have a whole pile of stuff I'm puttering around with. Like I said, I've got to move the office today after I get done this stream. Which means tomorrow when I go to do the stream, I've got to have the computer up and running. Which isn't entirely a bad thing. But we'll see how that goes. Now, I'm going to ask you something really direct here, football, if you don't mind. Okay, if I'm reading what you tried to type correctly, then we will have to go with the question of just a curiosity thing. And if you choose not to answer, don't worry about it. Okay, but the viable question is what makes you think you may be a walk-in? Yes, Adam, tomorrow is. And that's a good point. Which means, no, I will not be broadcasting from my room, from my bedroom tomorrow. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, tomorrow's going to be, that is game night. And I missed it last week. What I don't recall is if I'm playing D&D tomorrow or if I'm playing Shadow. No, it was supposed to be D&D. It was supposed to be Shadowrun last week. So it should be D&D this week. Oh, you used to be mean-spirited and now you're just grumpy? Oh, there we go. Now, curiosity football. Yeah, that's usually I'm just looking at what Kimberly wrote. Yeah, Kimberly was just writing. I heard a female voice asked me who I was. I answered with my name, and I felt an energy entering the top of my head and went through my whole body. I shook for 15 minutes. I'm going to say something here, and do not take this the wrong way, people. This is not making light of what Kimberly felt. Okay, I remember having the same thing happen every time I had an epileptic seizure. And I'd sleep for 3 hours. But essentially that would make total sense. You can't complain about that too much, about your life all of a sudden taking a massive shift for the better. But being, if you are in fact a walk-in, there would be something as radical as overnight, not something that was a gradual change. Like, for instance, my wardrobe is changing slowly. Okay. But in your case, football, if you were just absolutely a very mean, very hurtful individual, and one morning you wake up, it can be football. Football's just asking, is a birthmark a sign of past trauma? It absolutely can be, and usually that means past life trauma. But birthmarks are sometimes, there's a couple of things that can cause them. Obviously, one is genetic, but the actual birth sign itself, most of the time, is something that you've brought with you to remind yourself of something you've gone through. Well, nothing like a coincidence, and I'm a firm believer coincidences are highly overrated. Okay. But no, I'm just looking at that, at that issue there, Kimberly, because she's going, that was the same night I was on the UFO. What did I just unplug? I think I just unplugged my keyboard. This is not a good idea, because I can't use my keyboard if I unplug it. There it goes. Oh, that wasn't my keyboard. That's why. Okay. This thing here, if I ever get around to using it again, doesn't have to be attached to that laptop for the moment. But no, when you're looking at that kind of a radical shift, okay, yeah, I will tell you, football, given options, I'd agree with you wholeheartedly. But for me, it's happened so frequently at this point, it's just like, okay, here we go again. And it's way too common when my son will look at me and he'll see something outside and he'll call me just to look at it, and he'll go, is that what I think it is, Dad? And I'm like, yep. And he immediately turns around and goes, you're getting taken tonight, aren't you, Dad? I said, I'd lay odds on it. But he just takes it in stride at this point. It's just one of those things you kind of figure out how to work with and move forward. But the neat part about it, when you look at it, if you've been having trouble getting your life to move forward properly, okay, and all of a sudden a shift happens, you're likely to find you can make much better headway than you have been. Where'd it go? There we go. See, I got this corner desk. My corner will go away, but this corner desk will be moved into the back room today. And thereby, I'll be able to start making headway with things. Bear in mind, the other thing that will happen with a walk-in is all of a sudden you're likely to have a bunch of memories that don't add up. Because wherever that walk-in came from, they may be bringing memories with them. And yes, that has been known to happen. Okay, so I mean, from that standpoint, where are we? Yeah, football is going. I feel like the more I give, the more I get. That is ultimately the reality behind life. Karmic law is pretty cut and dried on that one. Energy out, energy in. Meaning whatever you put out, this is what you're signaling to draw back to you. Okay, it does not guarantee you'll get the best treatment. Okay, unfortunately, other people, or fortunately, really, other people still have the choice to make as to how they're going to operate. Okay. Well, can't complain about that too terribly much, Kimberly. That's why I said sometimes it can happen. In my case, the way my life has been, I was actually asked years ago about it. And, I remember the transition point extremely well. But for the transition to take place for me was, quite literally be about 8 hours for it really to take hold. And I'll tell you, it was the weirdest feeling. I was actually asked the first psychic reading I ever personally went to. The gentleman in question literally asked me if I'd ever done a reading for a walk-in. Of course, I was really, Kimberly's just going, I've wondered maybe a partial possession. Technically, it's possible, but possession is usually an all or nothing gambit. Okay, is there any functional doubt from my end that you've been getting input from from a medium standpoint? The answer is no. By the feel of it, that really is the critical factor of what you're likely dealing with. You may well be picking up on deceased spirits or disembodied personnel. See, a partial takeover wouldn't switch your life completely. Okay. It would all it would do is capitalize on certain other aspects. Okay. But I do suspect, given the fact, and with this major turn, with this complete change, that would undoubtedly open some of your higher senses up. And the moment that happens, you're all of a sudden subject to, if you will, precognition, telepathy, which is a combination of telepathy and empathy. Hey, Eternity, glad you could join us. Of course, you end up with mediumship, and you probably have a little bit of psychometry. Now, psychometry is when you pick up an object and you pick emanations up off the object, because everybody that touches anything leaves a spiritual fingerprint, if you will. But all of these things are quite common in the way of change. Okay, they're all quite common. And it's just a question of figuring out which ones are which and starting to move forward with it. Okay, so by what you're describing, Kimberly, it's a pretty good bet. Okay. The real question I have is, did you notice a change before or after other people started noticing and started bringing it to your attention? And it can be both ways, by the way. Neat part is, in a question like that, we're not dealing with a right or wrong answer. We're simply dealing with this is what happened. Okay. And that's the thing we have to remember. Is it not a question of, is this the right answer? Is it a wrong answer? And I'm certainly not about to sit here and go, oh, you're imagining it. And sadly, I've seen a lot of people do just that. This is one of the things I've been striving to make certain of. Okay, that we have, that we are making headway, that people are aware of what we're dealing with. So that'll end up over there. When I move this thing between today and tomorrow, I'll have both of the desks underneath the windowsill, and then I'll have the computer just up on the extra monitor up on the right. But I'm getting rid of a lot of the stuff as I go along. Now, the thing with a walk-in, okay, is all of a sudden your life takes a massive shift. Other people may, oh yeah, Kimberly's going, yeah, I'm rather hypervigilant now. Some people would liken it to being borderline paranoid. Okay. And there's, I don't have a problem with being somewhat paranoid. I've got it down to a fine art. But the reality, yes, I know, I keep turning my back on you. But, I've come to the conclusion that a healthy sense of paranoia is not a bad thing. Yep. Yeah, you'll feel something's a little wrong. And again, this is just one of those side effects. Not every walk-in gets them. And the reality is, not every walk-in knows they're a walk-in. Okay, their friends may notice a drastic change in their personality, but most friends won't actually say anything about it. Doesn't necessarily help, but it does make them bad, as it were. Okay, and yeah, I have got to do that, don't I? I keep postponing getting one thing sorted around. I've got this in my computer room, the computer station here, aside from shutting the computer down and moving it. And I think I'm going to have to double check, because I think I might have an interesting problem. I wonder, I think that's in the back room. I may have to do something a little funny. Where it comes to how I may end up with a cable running all the way down the hallway to hardwire this in. Because running on, just dawned on me, and I'll have to test it out, but running on Wi-Fi from the back room may not be as functionally healthy as I was hoping. This is still going to have to be moved, though. Ultimately, Kimberly, that's exactly what it boils down to. This is why I say a walk-in is not a possession, because a walk-in is an agreed-upon transfer. And yes, I have seen it. Oh, rest assured, I have seen it happen that, a walk-in, you take place, and sometimes it boils down to, I just need your life for a couple of months. And then they'll swap back. Gets really confusing for the friends. How you doing there, Mr. L? Glad you could join us. And Derek, 5G may, I don't know. Frankly, I've had troubles with I've had troubles with the internet even way back when we had BBSs as the primary. And as the primary interaction. Apparently they're now coming out with 10G. Now, I have no idea what that's like. I do know this. 2G makes it really hard and really tiring to walk in. Okay. But I did go out looking for a new computer. And I've got my eyes on one, and we'll see what happens. I will talk to the people and make sure that I can get everything sorted around. Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, if you remember the dial-up, see, the first computer I had, the first one that was internet capable, was on a 1200 baud system. I didn't have the one where you pick the phone up and set it on the cradle, but a lot of my friends did, or more to the point, a lot of the people I knew did. I had a 1200 baud modem, and it was great. I mean, I had a state-of-the-art computer with 300 meg of RAM. Okay, and I mean, it worked like a charm. As compared to every other computer, they all die on me anyway. And no problem there, Kimberly. Glad to help. Yeah, I finally got rid of my old ones. I used to have, the first computer I worked on was a TRS-80, which was tape driven. And then an 8088, which was a dual disc drive, a dual disc boot drive. So we are going back to the dark ages when we're talking about some of this stuff. Okay, people talk about lag now, and I'll tell you the lag now is nothing compared to what it used to be. But one of the things, and I swear this is part of what I see with some people that they're diagnosed multiple personality disorder. Not all of them by any functional standpoint. Oh, I don't doubt that at all, Derek. Mind you, I used to think I was an absolutely phenomenal mechanic. I could pull any piece of equipment apart, put it back together, have it still run properly, and yet have parts left over. Which I don't know if that meant I was a good mechanic or just a creative screw up. But no, I'm actually looking at upgrading. But this computer I'm working on, I'm figuring I will swap it over and use it for gaming, which leaves me gaming as in working for Dungeons and Dragons and what have you. I think that's actually the best bet I could do. That way I don't lose any of the gear. But with that in mind, I'm sort of taking, where are we going here? Oh yeah, Derek. I mean, let's face it. The old VW Bug. If you had a wrench and a pair of vice grips, you could fix dang near anything in it. And of course, you ever ran into something, you'd get shaken a little. But the car would carry on. You just grab a ball-peen hammer and hammer the dents out. Hey, Nathan, how we doing? Uh-oh. Well, hopefully it didn't hurt. Nathan's just saying he got kind of slammed at work tonight, but he's still listening in. And with that in mind, let's call this thing up. Pull that up and find it where Nathan is. Nathan, here we go. Here we go. Copy. We minimize that. We go back to here. And here is the link to Nathan's show. There we go. So, I mean, I'm looking at a lot of things taking place. But a lot more people are starting to recognize the changes in the metaphysical world around them. Now, this does not mean we got a lot of people going through soul swaps or through walk-ins. Okay, it means people are finally starting to wake up. Okay, that's the reality behind it. Okay, now what am I looking at? I've got to leave that there. Yes, my brain is going all over and searching in different places. So that'll get the monitor and the laptop. And they'll be sitting side by side, so that's the easy part. Don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of it, but I'll figure it out. So you're trying to put an 8-cylinder into a 4-cylinder space there, Mr. L? I hear they can do it. It just takes a little bit of work. There was a guy about 20 years ago that took a V8 engine and mounted it, and I'll use the term in a little loosely. He apparently mounted, I saw pictures of it, so he did it. Mounted a 12-cylinder engine onto a Harley Davidson panhead motorcycle. Right. Now, I mean, that motorcycle could travel like a bat. I mean, this is just, when you're looking at walk-ins are a lot of fun. Can be. Oh, yeah, it is. But here's the one little kicker, and I appreciate the input there, Derek. I actually went looking for a new computer. Yeah, Derek's just going, you can buy an Acer laptop Chromebook 4 gig right now for $99, which is a great price. Yeah, it really is. From my end, I found one. It's going to cost me about $1,000. Okay, but it's got 20 gig of hard drive. Okay, or not 20. Yeah, 20 gig of RAM, which for me is going to be critical. Okay, so I'm looking at a fair chunk. I can actually put a second monitor there, because I'll be able, where did I put my, there it is. Sure, get me thinking about that. That always helps. Not your fault, mine. So that's 20 inches, so. That'll give me about 14 inches to put a computer on, an extra monitor on. I think I might just be able to do that. I might have a monitor that I can do that with. The neat part about it is I'm going to be, I've got a lot of complications that I've had to deal with, but when I look at walk-ins, okay, and yeah, I keep coming back to it because, well, let's face it. And again, people, if you have any question at all, even if it's not in the same topic that we're talking about, absolutely put your questions in all caps. Okay. That way I can find the question through the chat room. Because I'll tell you, I do not track it as well as Dave or many of the rest of you do. Well, the neat part is what I need the RAM for is because of the amount of doc files I have up and running. When I buy the new computer, that's all it's going to be used for. It's going to be used for work, for writing, for getting at my email, okay, and for doing my live stream. And of course, when I get the new laptop, I will be looking at it from the standpoint of as I will look into possibly putting SteamGuard on, okay, StreamYard rather. But I am absolutely going to require assistance to do that. Yeah, it's funny. I've got a laptop, like the laptop I'm using right now has 2 terabytes on board storage. Apparently, they don't make laptops with that many terabytes anymore. But they do have a external hard drive with 5 terabyte on it now. Only when I get the new computer, I'm going to be setting it up properly so I don't have to try and sort things through. That's something else I'll be working on today. But no, the difficult part, if you are in fact a walk-in, one of the things that you'll find is it takes you a little while to figure out where you're standing. I gotta ask, what is a gigabyte, Derek? That's just a curiosity thing because I've never heard of it. Mind you, I haven't heard of a lot of things in the technological world. The thing I look at is this. Technology is advancing extremely quickly. Unfortunately, what's being lost is people's ability to focus their own energy and drive things in the most effective direction for them. Now, what is that? Have to get that all sorted out, but I can do that down back. That's the easy part. Because I figure once I get this moved, then I can, because I don't know whether or not my son is moving back in at the beginning of May or at the end of May. But I'll be set to have him move in here at that point. I just got to double check one little piece of equipment I got to move. So I will deal with that. Haven't figured out how I'm going to pull that off yet, because that green filing cabinet behind me is going to have to go as well. But I got to figure out where it's going to go to. Which shouldn't be too terribly much trouble. I just got to piece it together. I think I'll end up, it might go in the office, it may end up front, or in the bedroom, it may end up front. It depends on how much room it's going to take. But if you're thinking you may be dealing with being a walk-in, what you're looking at is a major personality shift or a major priority shift. Maybe all of a sudden, maybe you were bound and determined you were going to be a football player, and everything was going tickety-boo. You were working your tail feathers off, and all of a sudden, essentially overnight, you went, no, I'm going to learn to play the violin. Okay, that kind of drastic shift does happen. Yeah, I'm going to, when I buy the new computer, Mr. L, I'm looking at potentially buying a 5 terabyte. Not that I'm ever likely to need that much, but all of my writing, all of my videos and what have you will be moved on to it. And from there it'll be a question of, okay, because I found a guy that will come out when I get the new computer. He'll come out to my house and do all the swap over. Right. And because when I went looking, it's like, okay, I'm not interested in dealing with another corporation. So I contacted this guy, and he sort of shut me down to start with, because I had started off, I was looking for a new computer. And he was really busy. He said, look, I don't deal in new computers. Right. And so we talked for a bit. And I said, thanks very much for your time. And I went looking elsewhere. But this morning I got a call from him. And he's quite willing to help me find the right computer and then do all the necessary modifiers to it. How you doing there, Dogface? Glad you could join us. Yeah, I've got so much junk on the computer I'm working on here that I will absolutely be pushing the idea of clearing off the junk and getting rid of it. I've got major things I've got to deal with. But I'll tell you, the fact that I get so much support from you guys and so much encouragement from you guys is one of the reasons. I wish I could there, Derek, but unfortunately, not in May, on December 15th, I ended up being unemployed. My job got literally, they closed the doors. And then EI turned me down because my former boss screwed up on the ROE. So the odds of right now, it's a question of making sure that I can actually survive. And the cost of making the trip is approximately 2 months about 2 months worth of living. And right about now, it's just not feasible. Up until December, I was actually seriously considering making it. I was actually making plans to make it. And then all of a sudden, the bottom dropped out of my life. So I'm not holding my breath. I wish I could make the trip, and one day I will be able to travel again. I will be getting my passport renewed this year. But I had to wait because, of course, to be clear, one of the things that held me up in doing any travel, aside from my own stress levels, was the fact that I absolutely refused to go in and get vaccinated for COVID. I didn't go anywhere. I stayed home. Honestly, Derek, I was a professional psychic. Still am, in all fairness. And in answer to that wonderful question, well, didn't I know it was going to happen? Certainly I did. 5 years before they closed the door, I knew they were going to. Problem was, I'm also a professional procrastinator. So I didn't do anything about it. And, well, guess what happens when you don't do anything about something you know is going to go sour? Now I'm right back behind the 8 ball. But I know what I'm up to. I've got a plan set in motion. And as a matter of fact, I've already started working on it. But yeah, When I say professional psychic, I'm the guy that people phoned up and said, look, my life has gone to pot. How do I deal with it? Or I'm having trouble with my marriage. How do I straighten it out? And don't kid yourself, 80 to 85% of the information I was pulling in was quite literally, you could chalk it up to common sense and life experience. Where I ran into a problem was certain things where, and you'd get those few calls, right? Like one, I had a woman call me up. I'd never spoken to her before. And she turned around and she goes, look, I've lost my passport and I've got to be across the border in an hour. Now, she was in Vancouver, BC. I'm in Kelowna, BC. Okay. I'll get back to that one in half sec there, Derek. So, of course, she phoned up and she goes, I'm missing my passport. I kid you not, I'm sitting in my office and I looked at the phone and I says, you're looking in the wrong direction. She goes, what do you mean I'm looking in the wrong direction? I says, you're facing your desk right now. You're looking at your office and table and chair right now. She goes, yeah. I says, you're facing the wrong direction. Turn around. So she turns around. I say, okay. Now you see the second top shelf on the left-hand side. She goes, yeah. I said, you got a whole pile of files standing there on the shelf. She goes, yeah. I said, from the left-hand end, counting between 4 and 5 files. In between the 4th and 5th file, you'll find what you're looking for. So she immediately looks in between the files and screams, I've got my passport. How did you do that? I says, you've also got only 20 minutes to get across the border. I says, we'll have to deal with the how later. So and I can tell you all sorts of things I pulled off on that, but usually most of the people call were asking questions that were quite literally common sense. Okay. Oh, absolutely. I had a client that phoned me and in answer to the question somebody is likely to ask, yes, I have decided to keep doing live readings. Okay. But with the number of shaft jobs that I've had, what will end up happening is I will collect. I do collect first. Okay. Not a problem there, Alicia. Glad you're listening in. We end up with a lot of people listening in that are not actually active in the chat room. And I came to the understanding that that's actually not a bad thing. Okay. But no, the answer to the question that somebody's going to be asking at this point, yes, I still do live readings. Okay, but I work prepaid. In other words, the money comes in, then we book the reading and we deal with it. I'll work it around schedules in order to accommodate. Okay, and the answer to that other neat little question. Okay, just because I figure what the heck. Okay, I charge $90 for the first half hour right off the bat. And if we go an hour, that's okay. I just run with it. But that said, where is that funny little thing called an email address? Because this way you don't have to try and remember it. This here is the email address that is best suited to get a hold of me. Okay. And for pity's sakes, if you're trying to get a hold of me, do me a favor. Let me know who you are, especially if you're coming out of the chat room, because by letting me know a reference, at least I can figure out what I'm dealing with. Where did that? I saw something there. And from my standpoint, like I looked at it and I did the thing that was absolutely twisted. Okay, with all of the price increases before COVID, okay, I was actually charging $180 an hour. Okay. But you got to remember, I've been doing this professionally for 40 years now. Yeah, since 1986 was when I started getting paid. Okay. So, yeah, we're looking at almost 40 years of experience where I've dealt with in excess, I kid you not, in excess of 110,000 clients from virtually every walk of life. Okay. One of the funniest ones I ever did was I read for a racehorse. I actually dealt with the owner of a Triple Crown bloodline horse and helped her get it to run properly. Yeah, by the time 85 rolled around, I was already 22. I got a day or two on you there, Derek. Oh, there is. This is the thing that I really like about this place here, Alicia, is we've managed to get really solid support people in here, really good people. That's why it sets me off when you get somebody coming in like a couple of weeks ago. We had some genius come in and saw the cross chatter, and he goes, "Oh, there's so many trolls in this place." I'm like, "No, this is what I keep telling people to do. If you can help each other, this is the idea." Okay, because as I said, working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Okay, now I will be doing the live reading still. I've had it mentioned a number of times that I should look at doing more and more of the shorter sessions. Oh, that was that was it was funny. The whole problem with the horse was when it was training, it would run like the absolute wind, right? But on race day, the gun would go off, the gates would drop, and the horse would just saunter out and stand there and look at the crowd, and then wander around in a circle for a bit and then walk back into the gate. Right. They were getting ready to have the thing shipped off, and because the woman goes, "I can't deal with this. We paid a fortune to have this horse, and it runs like the wind." She goes, "I can't figure out what's wrong. Health wise, it's fine." And I says, "He wants to be part of the family." She goes, "What do you mean wants to be part of the family?" I say, "He wants to eat breakfast with you, especially on game day." She goes, "Well, he's a horse." I says, "Yeah, but he still wants to eat breakfast with you." "Well, I can't bring him in the house." I said, "Well, technically, no. But I said, you do have a pot sink in the kitchen, and you've got a window that opens up that his head will fit through." She goes, "Well, yeah." I said, "So what you do is when you're getting ready to have breakfast, get whatever you can in the way of hay, bring it in and set it in the pot sink, and open the door for him. Open the window so he can reach in and eat." Well, she followed it, and the very next race, she goes out. They take him down to the track. Gun goes off. The gate drops, and the gun goes off, and the horse is gone around the second quarter before the competitors even got halfway down the first stretch. So I mean, and she just phoned back. She goes, "How did you possibly figure that one out?" And so I asked him. I mean, the neat part about it from my end is I was absolutely terrified of horses, to the point that you got a horse within 15 feet of me, even if I didn't know it was there. My hand is starting to shake so bad I couldn't hang on to a coffee cup. And that is a travesty. But we had and like I said, that was one of the weirdest setups that I had as far as clients went. Oh, all the time. Sad to say, like I had a number of missing person calls, and the only one that we lost, I was actually working on working on a private missing person case. Okay, we had boots on the ground in the area, and the FBI shut us down. They ended up finding the kid after it was dead. In all fairness, Mr. L, I have no idea where Lafayette is. I can tell you I'm in Kelowna, BC, but I have no idea where Lafayette is. That would sound like Quebec, but I don't know. But yeah, I did a cold case, I literally had a cold case file that I did that I've actually got a copy of the actual police map and the copy of the map that I drew. And when I was talking to the officer about the missing person, I'm sketching this map out. And he's looking at me with wider and wider eyes. And he finally looked at him and I says, I take it you've seen this before. He goes, yeah. I says, so why are you so agitated? He says, well, I just got my copy in the beginning of this week. It's sitting back in the office. I says, yeah. He says, so where in tarnation did you get yours from? I asked the dead guy. And the cop looks at me and goes, I didn't tell you he was dead. I says, no, but he knows. The thing is, Alicia, when I was asked if I would talk to the police about this one missing person, I told the client, I says, yeah, I got no problem with it. But let's be clear. I'm not walking into the cop shop and going, here's what I'm seeing. They want to talk to me. I'm not that hard to find. Knock on my hotel door. I'll talk to them. As it turned out, with that particular case, we found bones. Okay. After 40 years, we found the bones. Okay. Problem was, as soon as we found bones, the officer in question that was working with me was shipped out of the province. Just gone. Yeah. You know what, Alicia? I grew up in essentially a Bible Belt. Okay. Tiny town, very religious, very much into, when they weren't in church, most of them were into rock and roll music. Okay. I used to teach Sunday school, baptized Roman Catholic, brought up Protestant, became agnostic, and then turned around and became a minister. To make matters worse, as Barbara Mandrell put it, I was country when country wasn't cool. But I mean, the number, you think about it, I've got, like I said, in excess of 100,000 clients under my belt. So when I talk about databases and experience and the statistics I'm referring to, it's not based on what I've read. It's based on what I've talked to people about and what I've seen work. Okay. And the answer to the other part of the question, I've dealt with vortexes. Okay. And I mean physical vortexes where things were literally flying around in circles. Okay. I've dealt with possessions. I've dealt with poltergeistic activity. I've dealt with abductions. I've dealt with attempted abductions. Okay. I mean, you name it, I've likely dealt with it. Okay. Have I helped track down an active hitman or something to that effect? No. Okay. That's one area that I've managed to thankfully avoid. But this is how, it was funny. The first time I ever got a reading done myself, like on myself, I was actually asked if I'd ever read for a walk-in. I had no idea what a walk-in was, right? Which is why I figured I'd start off by explaining what it is. Now, I will caution you, the one thing, especially where it comes to consultations, and by the way, like there are people that when they're doing consulting, they'll go, Okay, if I'm using this tool, it's going to cost this much. If I'm using this tool, it's going to cost this much. I use all of them at the same time. So I look at it going, whether it's psychic or business, it doesn't matter. 30% of my clients are business. Okay. Now, with that in mind, I still charge the same price. I charge the same price for my time, not based on the tool. Okay. It's just that simple. So when I'm looking at people that are going, I really need to sit down and talk and work something out, I got no problem with it. A lot of what I do, according to the clients I had, a lot of it is simply confirm what they already knew, kind of acting as a corroboration factor, faction. But the one thing I won't do is, number one, I'm not going to lie to people to make you feel better. This is why I get into trouble here. Okay. I had somebody here a week or so back, and I haven't seen them back in the place yet. Asked a question. I flat out told them they're not getting an answer until I get clearance. Okay, until I get clearance from the individual concerned. Okay. Yeah, I love watching the sunset. Sunrises are kind of neat too there, Alicia. It's funny because I stay in my house most of the time, but because of the direction my house faces, I can watch the sunrise any day that I get on, that I'm up, which is most of them. So, and where are we? We are on Wednesday right now, aren't we? What's that? Oh, not a problem there at all, Alicia. Uh-oh. We have a sad story. That is unfortunate. I'm gonna have to be honest here. Oh, wait a minute, what we got? Oh, I see. Kimberly's going, Alicia, I heard about the fire going on there. Oh, Derek, if I recall correctly, I was talking to, I really am a little fuzzy on that one, but I do believe that my other half at the time had tapped in and found out about Dave. We had another, I don't know if you guys remember a chap, used to be in the UFO circuit by the name of Charles Stansberg. Used to be the head of MUFON, Texas. Right. And I don't honestly know how the transition came out. But Dave asked, I was asked one day, and I think it had to do with my ex. Not my ex-wife, but an ex-girlfriend. That talked to Dave, and Dave says, okay, let's bring him on. So we got talking. I did the first show. And it was like a few days later. And Dave contacted me and asked if I'd be willing to come back on. And well, as the saying goes, here we are 8 years later, still doing one show a month. Okay, on the first Friday of every month. There were times early on, well, up until about a year ago, there were days that we'd be on 4 hours. So, I mean, and from there, it's been one thing after another. And we've gone through a lot since getting on the show with Dave. I've got Races of the Worlds, which is out in print. I'm still working on getting the second printing finished, which reminds me. I did. I moved it all over there. I have to get this actually dealt with today. Let's move this stuff out of the way. Make a note to get this stuff done as soon as I get done the stream. I do hate vertigo. It's a royal pain in the neck. But I've got to get the last 4 pictures sent off, 4 descriptions sent off to the artist working on Races of the Worlds. Yeah, myself, it's funny, Kim. I'm definitely not a prepper. I've got about 2 months worth of food in my house. I'll be placing an order, probably to come in. Probably do it to come in Monday morning because I don't have to go anywhere, right? But I like to keep 2 to 3 months of food in my house. I'll tell you, it was a really good idea to do so. The thing from my standpoint, it boils down to this. The world is in a dire strait right now, but if we continue doing what we're doing, okay, we can turn this world back around. I mean, so many people, there are literally billions of people that will listen to somebody telling them, they'll sit there enthralled for hours as somebody says, oh, the world's going to end and God's going to wipe you all out and the aliens are going to come down and wipe out Earth. It is amazing how many people will sit there and listen to this. Now, certainly, it is possible the world's going to end. But I will tell you, if it ends, we ain't going to have to worry about it. Okay. Where are we here? Richmond. Mr. L. From what I look at, from what I'm looking at, there are so many people, and this is a good thing. I'm getting more and more contact from people going, I've started seeing things in a much different light. I'm starting to realize that we can actually shift this. Okay. Oh, I agree with the thing is, Kimberly, when we talk about prep, when we're looking at 4 to 6 months, that's not prepping for the end of the world. That's just prepping for a rainy day. And this is why I'm going to end up dealing with that, because I got to go to the bank and pull some money and what have you. But I'm going to sit down, work out what I require, and then I'm going to place a massive order and bring it in. Yeah, but the thing is, in today's world, assuming that the world doesn't collapse, then you should be able to find work if you end up unexpectedly unemployed. You should be able to find work as long as you're not incredibly picky about having food in the area or about having an income. Yeah, I tried planting a garden. I finally gave up on it. I can kill an air plant in 3 days. Imagine how much fun I'd have in a garden. Now I can plant all kinds of lady's fingers, but that creates a bit of a problem in and of itself. Also, a real twist of saying outlook. No, I think I've got a brown thumb. I walk by a plant, the poor thing dies. Electronics have that problem too. One thing that I will tell you, with the number of people waking up, it's not always a question of suddenly becoming, a walk-in. Sometimes what we're dealing with, as a matter of fact, more often than not, is a light finally goes on. And somewhere in the back of your head, it's like, wait a minute, we're doing this to ourselves by choice. How do I change what I'm doing by choice? Okay. One of the obvious ones is the issue of dropping weight, breaking addictions, and treating people the way you desire to be treated. But it takes that definite choice that you're doing it for you. A walk-in is a massive shift that happens literally overnight, and you may not even recognize it happened. Oh, yeah, Kim saying, Alicia, test your water too. Many are getting sick from the East Palestine derailment. Chemicals found their way into Michigan now. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Kimberly, but we are talking about Palestine as in the Middle East, are we not? The thing about it, when you start looking at water contaminants, oh, well, thank you very much. Which gives you an idea of my knowledge of, my knowledge. Oh, okay. I didn't, geography is not my strong suit. Okay. Heck, there's a lot of things that aren't my strong suit. Putting my foot in my mouth without question is likely one of my easiest or most, shall we say, well-developed traits. What do we got? Ouch. Now that's a lot of green beans. I used to can, but I used to actually make a lot of my own jam and what have you. Jam or canned peaches, that sort of thing. But I will tell you, home canning, it's not exactly a whole lot less expensive. But I will tell you, it cuts down on the amount of garbage that you're getting. The one thing that I always look at is this. Okay, with your life going the way it is. Okay, and obviously we've gone really sidetracked here, which is, gee, I don't know. I think that's standard practice for me. Okay, we start off on one topic and end up on the other side of the planet. Okay, but where it comes to preparing for things, it's a question of balancing rationality with potentiality. Not a problem there, Kimberly. There's one thing that is not going to upset me in any functional fashion is getting a topic shifting gears. Okay, the reality of it is that in this chat room, yes, I pick a topic to start with, but that is just to get the ball rolling. And if it goes down the road of how do we turn around and how do we prepare for a complication without looking at the end of the world? I'm really not going to go down the road of going, oh, the world's going to end in the next, 5 years. We're going to be in a global war. I can tell you all sorts of things I can see coming. But the reality is, hey, Christine, how you doing? Glad you could join us. The reality of it is, when we start focusing and really tilting the focus to the positive side of things, the whole concept of going to war can be derailed. See, it's funny there, Alicia. I grew up on a hobby farm. We had 2 acres. Okay, 1 acre of it happened to have woods in it, and then we had a half acre, a half an acre. Was half an acre or a quarter acre? No, it was a quarter acre. Farm garden. Okay, but we had chickens, pigs, and a cow. Okay, and like you, we had 10 people in the house. Yeah, we had 10 people. There were 6 kids. Well, 5 of us were born now, and were born to mom and dad, and we adopted a little sister, And then we had 2 foster sisters. Okay. And we used to be on the go all the time. I mean, it was a lot of work, but it was also a lot of good times. What do we got here? Yeah, Mr. L goes, always learn how to manage the canner pressure. Well, if you don't, you get to clean the ceiling. And you might have to replace the ceiling tiles. I don't use a canner. I actually found out from a little old lady. She was 95 at the time when I learned how she used the oven to do all of her canning, right? And when she told me when we got that sorted around, okay, I used to can all my own jam, and I really should get back into that sort of thing. It's a lot healthier. Oh yeah, the cow not so much, but I was afraid of the cow. But I mean oh yeah, we also had a pair of rabbits. But the rabbits, the chickens, and the pig I used to talk to all the time. That's how I found out that the pigs actually don't like the mud so much as the mud stops them from being sunburned. But yeah, I mean, and I still end up talking to the animals. It was funny. I was down on Vancouver Island in Victoria with my son a few years ago. And I'm sitting there, and yes, I've got photographs that show it all. But I was sitting there talking there was a seagull that showed up. And I was talking away to him. He was standing on my windowsill. So I'm standing there talking to him, and then my son wakes up, and I just looked at the seagull, and that was Pai. I says, hang on half a second, Pai. I just want to introduce you to my son. So Pai clammed up for a minute, and I turned and opened the door. Now, bear in mind, I was not speaking English. Okay. So I turned and went to the door to my hotel room and invited my son in. And I says, don't move quickly. Just come in, sit down quietly. I want you to meet somebody. My son looks at me and goes, meet somebody. Comes in, I introduced him to Pai. And we're sitting there talking back and forth. My son is taking pictures over the course of almost an hour. And I've been talking to him I've been talking to Pai for about 20 minutes before. And then all of a sudden, Pai took off. I'm talking to Pai for a minute, and Pai turns around and takes off. My son goes, where did he go? I said, I told him I wanted to meet his mate. I think he went to get her. And no more than 5 minutes later, Pai shows up with a partner who happened to be Lei. So of course, we talked a little more. And I'll tell you, there's little funnier than listening to a seagull laugh. So, I ended up, and we talked for, like I said, close to an hour, and then I looked at Pai and I said, look, I hate to do it, but I've got to get things on the go here. I said, I'll try and say goodbye to you before I said, hopefully I'll see you before we leave. Right. So we said our goodbyes. He took off. Well, the two of them took off. We get out in the lobby. My son looks at me and goes, Dad, you were talking to the seagulls. I says, yeah. I said, I told you I've been doing that for years. He goes, yeah, but Dad, I didn't believe you. I said, well, I can't do much about that. Oh, Mr. L, the answer. Oh, sorry. What have we got here? Faith can do wonders there. Faith really, Mr. L. can absolutely do wonders in the healing fields. Absolutely it can. Because it boils down to this. If you believe you are capable, contrary to some people, if you believe in your heart that you've got that capacity and you're willing to let your body remind somebody else's how to heal, okay, there is nothing stopping you from doing it. Okay, sadly, a lot of the people in positions of power, if you will, in the church have deemed it their sole right. And yet, when you think about it, the statement was made very clearly: all that I do, thou shalt do, and more. Okay, I've healed people, I've healed people out of a coma. Well, I shouldn't say people, it was Mac's father-in-law. Okay, brought him out of a coma after 6 weeks in an absolute shutdown. Okay, pulled a young lass out of a wheelchair, right? And again, it wasn't me doing the healing. All I did was remind them how their own body can do it. But you can do the same thing with animals. The one thing I've never managed to do it very well with was plants. I can talk to plants, but unfortunately, I seem to have a little bit of a hiccup there. The thing is, Alicia, I have no functional option. Okay, I agree wholeheartedly with you regarding being grateful and saying a prayer for the animals that you are consuming. But this idea of not eating red meat, my body literally requires it. I swear I'm half carnivore. Okay, so will I continue eating animals? Absolutely. Will I continue treating animals properly, same as people? Absolutely. Okay, but am I about to turn around and go vegetarian or vegan? That's a good way to get me killed. Literally, my body will turn on itself, which I think is a bad thing for me. Okay, but, and again, this is something else I've seen happen with walk-ins. They'll be really, they can be really violent or really heavily onto a negative approach, if you will. Okay, and all of a sudden it's a complete swap around. I've seen diets and dietary changes happen overnight, not because the doctor said they should. Yeah, the neat part about it, if it is done properly, okay, animals are here for consumption. This does not mean they're supposed to be abused. This does not mean they're supposed to be packed into a cage, 6 and 7 into a 3-foot cage, and just kept there and fed all kinds of steroids and what have you. That is not raising animals. Okay, that's where it becomes a bit of a hiccup. Yeah. Alicia's just going, I live right atop Sugar Creek, so I'll assume that it'll eventually spread through the waterways. Ouch. Now, here's the thing. Here's something you might want to try, Alicia. Did you realize that that you yourself can actually facilitate healing that spring? Okay. You can literally help clear the spring, the poison out of it. Oh, heavens no. I mean, we had breakfast together, but it was not a question of begging. Football. Pai and Lei weren't there begging. We were actually talking. The fact I ended up giving them, sharing a couple of Twinkies with them was just because I was having breakfast anyway. Funny part about it is I will eat in front of people, but when I've got a pet there, I tend to make sure they get food at the same time. But then I'm a firm believer that people can get their own food. Yeah, you certainly can't complain about that kind of treatment there, Adam. You know, the thing is, if you treat the better you treat an animal, the better you treat your garden. Okay, the healthier and the more quality food you actually get. Yeah, they underestimated there, Kimberly, when they said that the contamination could go out 450 miles. The contamination, I hate to tell you this, is going to go global. Okay. Now, yes, as time goes on, it will be limited, but you yourself, because you're in proximity, can actually, well, we can do it from here, but that damage can be healed. Okay. You know, the nice part about it is when we concentrate on healing the planet, on giving each of our children a step up. This does not mean that you shouldn't eat vegetables or that you shouldn't eat animals or anything like this. Quite frankly, they are part of the food chain. I loved it one day. I was in a grocery store, and this woman come up to me, and out of the blue she looks at me and she goes, I think hunting should be banned. I looked at her and I went, oh. She says people should not be allowed to go hunting. They should have to go to the grocery store and get their meat there where no animals are killed. And I went, well, there's a new idea. It's an interesting option. And I'll tell you, I told the butcher about it, and he nearly fell off the table when I told him that. Because, you do realize, like he said, well, like, I wonder if anybody realizes the real hiccup in this idea of don't go hunting, only buy meat from a grocery store where no animals are killed. This was not a question of only buy fake meat, as in vegetarian based. It was literally only buy meat, okay? And I'm wondering if anybody out there actually realizes what the real hiccup is there. She was right about the issue of the grocery store. The question is, does it make any sense? Hey Raven, how you doing? Glad you could join us. It was funny because when I was looking at this woman, I'm going like, okay, and I told the butcher that this is what she said, and he goes, well, she's not wrong. Says, yes, I'm a butcher. I work in a grocery store. There is not one time where we have actually killed an animal in the grocery store. And I'm looking at it going, now, and of course, this really boils down to everybody's entitled to their own way of looking at things. Well, bad news for you there, Alicia. Whether the farmer beside you leached pesticides into it won't matter. Okay. Your farm is still going to use the same water table and the same air that every farm around you uses. Okay, or for that matter, every farm around the world uses. Okay. And when you think about that, if you're, let's say you don't use any pesticides at all, okay, but the guy 2 miles away does, the wind will bring the pesticides to your garden. Now, granted, you're not adding it directly. Okay. But remember what I mentioned a while ago about taking your hands and literally you hold them a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch apart. Okay. And you feel the energy running between them. You concentrate on that so you can feel the pressure or whatever you identify it as. Okay. When you get your hands a good 8-10 inches apart, concentrating on that word, heal, while holding that energy pressure. Okay. What ends up happening is you put your hands on either side of a plate of food or on either side of a glass of water. And you can absolutely purify that water, take a lot of negative toxin out of it. Okay. The best, from my standpoint, the best filter I ever came across was a charcoal filter. Okay. It takes out the toxins and leaves the minerals behind. Now, I am no mechanical engineer. This is just a question of what I've come to understand. Okay. And again, do not take my word for it directly. Absolutely double check the facts, double check the information. Make the decision for yourself. Okay. I caution anybody that's looking at filters that they take out all the minerals as well, because the minerals are what your body actually works with. We're looking at a real positive shift. We've got the opportunity here to change the world for the better. Now, I keep forgetting what day of the week we are. We are on Wednesday. So I will have to see how tonight goes. But I'm going to be moving things around today to get them out of the way. What do we got going on here? But no, the thing is, when you're looking at your own life, and again, if you're having dreams, if you're having images that are suddenly popping out of nowhere, it may be in your best interest to start documenting them, which means put down the date and the time you remembered the dream or had the thought process. Keep a journal, because what you will undoubtedly find is that there is a pattern. Okay, that things are changing that you can actually quantify. Okay, but it does take a focused bit of effort. Okay, and what we're looking at here is it's time to really get excited about what you can accomplish with your own life. About what you're happy with. And that's one of the biggest things. What do we got here? Yeah, lemon is one of the bad. One thing that I find works well. Lemon works great for water. Don't forget, when it comes to the chlorine. Okay, if you put a jug of water on the counter, you fill a gallon of water. Okay, and leave it on the counter or in the fridge open. Okay, in a couple of hours, the chlorine will bleed out of it. But lemon itself, I mean real lemon juice, works really good for breaking down the excess toxins in water. Mother Nature is kind of funny that way. She provided all sorts of cures. Just most people ignore it. I'm not entirely certain, and now I see what you're doing. You can't be putting much sea salt into your water. Well, you could be, but I always find I never did like the flavor of salt water, so I just don't go there. But that's a personal issue on my end. But there are a lot of things that we can do to really shift our health. But the biggest thing where it comes to your weight is a simple mathematical formula. You put less calories into your body than you burn, you will drop weight. Okay. you spend less money than you earn, you will increase your bank account. Okay. If you start treating people in a positive fashion and limiting the number of people that deal with you in a negative fashion, you will find your mood climbs to a much higher level. Okay. And these are just standard static rules of life. Okay. Argue them if you will. And absolutely, if you feel I'm off kilter here, absolutely drop me an answer as to why. I had somebody drop me a note in YouTube. Okay, somebody dropped a note about their lack of belief in reincarnation. And of course, they started off with the no offense intended, but I don't believe in it. And the good news is, from my standpoint, I'm not here to prove to anybody, to make anybody believe one thing or the other. It is just simply a question of, this is the way I live my life, and it's worked like a charm. Okay, when I decided I was moving my office to the bedroom, and thank you whoever it was that pointed out, thank you for reminding me tomorrow won't be on air, so I've actually got 48 hours to move it. Okay, so I will be moving it tomorrow, but I've got time to move it and double check it. Because I'll tell you, moving an office desk is a pain in the neck. But it's got to be done for obvious reasons. Okay. So, I mean, this is just one of those things that I've got to deal with. It's kind of like when I go to move the files, the top drawer will be sorted out and I'll just put everything else in a box and then figure it out. But where it comes to your life, it's time to really get excited about the changes that you yourself can initiate. Instead of surrounding yourself with a bunch of things that are saying, oh, the world's going to end and we're all going to die. Good news. The world is going to end. You are all going to die. Bad news. Not, or maybe not. I don't know which one's which. Okay. It won't be soon. Okay. The world will end. A friend of mine actually guesstimated several trillion years before Earth dies. Before the world dies. Okay. As for you dying, you will. The world will end in a few trillion years. Okay. As for you, you will die. Okay. Most of you will die somewhere between 70 and 80 years old in all likelihood. Now, depending on who you are, that could be a short run from now, it could be a long run. Okay, but it depends on how you focus your energy. Okay, in my case, I've got a couple things I got to work out because I've got some pretty serious decisions I have to make before I up and drop dead. Again, tell you, it's really kind of funny from my end. From my end, it boils down to, yes, I'm going to die. I've done it before. It's really nothing new. Am I going to die anytime soon? Probably. I'm just not ready to die and stay that way yet. So from my end, I'm just not doing it. Like I told my other half, she's got until I drop dead, or if she drops dead first, I'm not marrying her. I'm not interested in that. Not into the necrophilia thing. And I'm certainly not recommending getting married to a corpse. Although if you can get married to a corpse that actually gets up and moves, that's great. I know a lot of the people I run into, I swear they're brain dead. I really do. The reality is people don't seem to think things through. Where it comes to, like, I've looked at this whole walk-in thing for a very long time. And again, I hear people going, oh, I've got these attachments and I'm this way because of something else grabbing hold of me. Bad news. In most cases, and I do mean this quite literally, Alicia. Well, Alicia is asking, question, how do you trust the info you get? I have intuitive abilities but struggle being confident enough to fully stand by the info I get. Self-doubt has been blocking me from progressing. Okay, now the way I do it, number one, I've been doing it for, well, publicly, I've been doing it for 45 years. Let's see, 23 to 40, yeah, 20 for 45 years. So then with over 100,000 clients under my belt, experience does give you a certain amount of upside to it. But I've been doing it for 59. But the biggest trick is when you look at it, okay, you're looking at gauging likely outcomes. You're not looking at definitives because the future is not concrete. Okay, there are certain paths that people walk on. There are certain things that humans on the whole follow. And by studying, this is why I say 80 to 85% of what any functional psychic does is a combination of common sense and life experience. Most people, like for instance, and this is why I always ask people, like there's 3 questions I've learned to ask that make all the difference in the world. What's your first name? The reason for the first name, it doesn't matter if you tell me your name is Gumshoe Bob. Okay, it just gives me a name to say other than, hey, you. Okay, so I ask people's first name. I ask, what is your birth date? Okay, and I ask, what city are you calling from? And here's the reason for all 3 of those. Okay, the name gives me something to call you by. It's that simple. That's all it is. The birth date, if you're a teenager and you're going through a complication, okay, if you're going through a complication as a teenager, you've got a certain amount of experience, okay, that will determine what your options are. If you're going through a situation as an adult, you've got more options. Growing up in a small town will give you a different outlook on life than growing up in a big city, in spite of the fact that around the world, okay, virtually everyone lives inside a 9-block square area. I gotta ask, Phyllis put down something here. What, pray tell, is ASL? Okay. Sorry, I miss out on a lot of the little acronyms and what have you that people work with. What do we got here? Now, here's the thing, Philip. Source number one, does it have a good record for accuracy with wisdom? The answer is yes. Compassion is a bit of a question. Okay, because source set everything in motion. Whether you call it source, God, doesn't matter. Source set everything in motion and then left everything with a soul, with a cognitive capacity to do what they will, to act of their own volition. And then Source said, okay, go forth, enjoy yourself. It's not a question of Source going, you're doing something wrong here. You're going to pay, you're going to suffer for it. Okay. Let's see here. You too, Alicia. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yep. I don't bother with the sex. Okay, with asking somebody sex. Okay, it does matter sometimes. I also don't bother asking about sexual orientation. Right? Because I have one guy who was absolutely confused. He looks at me He looks at me and he asks, he says, do you have a problem with me being gay? I looked at him and I said, what difference does it make to me? I said, the only thing it tells me is if I'm talking to you about a relationship and I see a female coming into your world, into your emotional world, the odds are it's male. That's the only thing it does for me. And he goes, you don't care. I said, let me ask you this. Do you care that I'm not? He says, why would I care whether you're gay or not? I said, that's my point exactly. For me, I don't bother with seeing it differently. People are people, and everybody is entitled and does deserve to be treated decently, providing they are treating people around them decently to start with. Okay. Now, football's asked, would I go back to my psychic fairs? It is possible. I will certainly go back and carry on doing readings. Okay. And that being said, if people do desire reading, I do work prepaid. It's that simple. Okay. And the thing is, if somebody says this is how much money I've got, and I decide to go longer, that's my issue. It will never get to a case of, you asked for half an hour and we ran an hour and a half. Oh, I'm going to charge you more money. That's not going to happen. It never has been my way. Okay. Would I go to a fair? I worked them for 5 years. And, I made functional money, but in all honesty, the guy organizing them made a heck of a sight more. But that said, will I go out? Will I do readings for people? Certainly. The most functional methods for me are either on Skype. Messenger works really well. Where are we here? Phil goes, only care if someone is gay, bi, or not. If deciding the two of you want to plan a date, like a date. Absolutely. If that were the case, then you absolutely have to take into consideration what the other one is. The neat part about it, from my standpoint, I don't have to look, right? Like I've been asked if I still get people going, I want to get to know you better. And I'm like, yeah, probably do. But considering the fact that I'm already occupied, I'm already spoken for, it's not going anywhere. Sadly, Philip, the reality of the psychic fairs is you make pretty decent money. Okay. But it's a lot of work because I used to work at them. I also for a couple of years ran them. And it's a lot of work to make it happen. But this is why when all of a sudden the line shut down, I was asked if I'd go back to work on the line. And honestly, I really debated just shutting it down altogether and saying, I'm not doing it at all. And then I figured, no, there's still people that require assistance. I haven't done a lot of advertising for it and probably should, but yeah, I used to work on a psychic line. Okay. And they'd call me and, I kid you not, when I first started working on psychic lines 25 years ago, okay, I would be lined up for 2 or 3 hours when I first got on the phone. The reality of it is that from my standpoint, I did decide that yes, I will keep doing them. Okay. I am not the fairs, but live readings. There are live ones that come through here, but I find so many of the people that work in them are, shall we say, a little less than honest. The first psychic fair I ever went to, there were 51 so-called psychics in the room. 8 of them were actually active. 8 out of 51. And I don't know what that is. Of course, now I'm curious. So if I do that, we go that. You go 8 divided by 51. You're looking at 15% were actually active. What have we got here? Oh, yeah. Kimberly, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm just looking at this, and Kimberly's going, I don't fit in on psychic fairs. Honestly, there are many vampires out there who call themselves healers. Yeah, I've seen a lot of them claim to be that, and it's just I remember the first one I met. I'm standing there watching her. I'd never been to a psychic fair. I never had any clue what this was. But I went, and I stood there, right? And I'm looking at this woman. I will get to that in just 10 seconds there, Philip. I stood there looking at this woman. She's got her hands over this woman's head. And I looked at the woman and I said, "Excuse me." I said, "What, pray tell, are you doing?" She says, "Well, I'm an energy healer, so I'm using my energy to interact with hers to help balance out her chakras." And I looked at her and I says, "Well, if that's the case, shouldn't there be energy running between your hands and her head?" Well, I'll tell you, that was not the right way to put it. Like I said, subtlety, not my strong suit. Okay. The short answer, Philip, is, to this question, how can you tell how many are active or not? Okay, the short answer is they feel different. Okay, the more practical answer is when you sit down. If they're asking you, like the 3 questions, absolutely, you go with it. And be honest. Okay, when you're asked a birth date, if you know the birth date, tell them your birth date. Do not try and hide it. Okay, if they ask you your name, give them an honest, proper first name. Not necessarily your legal one. Just one that you go by. Okay, but one of the biggest giveaways is if they start asking you, do you have a brother? Do you have sisters? Is your mom still alive? Okay, if they're asking questions like that at the beginning while they're shuffling things, and they'll do it quietly, they'll do it very, very, if you will, they'll do it very under the table. But if they're asking questions and getting answers from you, what they're doing is they're stacking the deck, and they're literally profiling you to start with, so they can give you the answers that are right, that make sense. Okay, when I'm talking to people, it's like, okay, I get those 3, and the only other question I ever ask somebody, 2 questions. One, and this is the primary one I ever ask people I'm actually doing a reading or a consult for. Does this make sense to you? Is this making sense to you? That question is a legitimate one, because I don't have to, and no psychic has to understand your life. Okay, nobody does. The idea is for them to say something that actually adds up for you. Absolutely, Adam. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, I know that feeling. I gotta go get dinner soon too. Where are we here? We're winding down. But thanks so much for joining us, Adam. I really do appreciate it. You ever get out this way, we'll absolutely have to sit down for a coffee. I'd say beer, but frankly, I don't drink beer. For that matter, I don't technically drink. But no, the biggest thing where it comes to psychics that are just pumping you for information, if they're asking a bunch of questions, other than those first 3, and those should come right off the deck at the time, get them out of the way. Ask, this is what I need to know. Well, of course, you ask, what's your first name? What's your birth date? And, where are you from? Right? The second, the other question, what questions do you have that you would like answered? I usually get people to put down, they've got 2 or 3 questions. let me know about them all at the same time. Because what I find happen is I'll go through a reading, I'll tell them everything that's coming up, and they refuse to answer a question. And they get to the end and go, well, you didn't answer the question I really wanted. I'm like, well, you didn't ask. Absolutely, Kimberly. No question there at all. What do we got? Kimberly's going, Alicia, sometimes you just being you is enough. Nothing fancy like a world-renowned psychic, etc. That's just it. Most really strong psychics don't really desire to be in the spotlight. Okay. The one thing I kept telling people, the last place I want to be, and of course, sitting in front of a camera and talking on the air, 6 days a week, is not the way I thought my life was going to go. Not the way I was planning on it at all. Yeah, Philip, that is very much the case. If you're genuine, and this is why I warn people, I'm not subtle. I'm not likely to tell you what you want to hear. I remember I was at a fair one day. I was straightening up my table, and this guy comes up, and he goes, excuse me. So I didn't even stand up. And the guy looks at me, he says, excuse me, I don't mean to be rude, but how do I know for certain that you won't just tell me what I want to hear? Well, I never even stood up. I looked at him sideways and I says, well, quite frankly, sir, because I couldn't care less what you want to hear. And then I turned back to doing what I was doing. And, he said, and so he just stood there in silence. And a couple of minutes later, he goes, excuse me, but I want you to do a reading for me. I went, sure, no problem. So I sat down with him, asked him the 3 questions, and got carried away with it. Well, we got done the reading. And I asked the guy, I says, can I ask you a personal question? He goes, yeah, absolutely. He says, go ahead. I says, with 9 other fully qualified psychics here, why were you so adamant about me? He says, well, to be honest, he said, well, I asked you how I would know if you would just tell me what was coming up and not just what I wanted to hear. I says, yeah. He says, you dang near told me to flock off. Right? And he goes, if you're not even going to try and make a sales pitch, he said, I'll guarantee you won't lie to me once I'm at the table. For me, I just don't see the point. Number one, and this is just across the board with your life, if you're going to lie, you have to remember what the lie is in order to keep it going. Now, I can't remember what I had for breakfast half the time. Okay, which is one of the reasons why I usually have the same thing. What do we got? Alicia's just gone. I've come to terms recently with some of us were simply meant to put light in the world. One person, one kind act or gesture at a time. And I live for that. And it truly brings me joy. And that is fantastic. I really have a lot of struggle with it in a lot of ways because I'll tell you, the people in this room are phenomenal. You guys really are. I mean, yes, we've had a couple of poison pills come into the room, but on the whole, you guys are extremely cooperative, you're supportive, and the encouragement I get from you guys is something bizarre. Okay. But what I find with a lot of people is they're just not that way inclined. And for me, I'm looking at a much bigger picture. And of course, so many lifetimes I've watched civilization collapse. It's kind of a pain in the neck. Yeah, I've done that, Kimberly. I actually, what I'll do is I'll go into a restaurant and it's like, I'll look at the table and go, I'm going to pay for that one. And then I'll leave. Like, I'll pay for the table and then leave. That's just the reality behind the way my world goes. What do we got here? Ozzy, how you doing? Hopefully things are going with your father. walking laps around the hospital. Yeah. Ozzy goes, it's 12:22 a.m. Thursday here, walking laps around the hospital campus while my father is in physio. See, I'm not a good salesman. This is one of the reasons why this hasn't done a whole lot of sales. I figured out an idea, and I'm going to drop it into the on the net one of these days. It's just a question of deciding to get on there and go, this is what it is. Okay, might be an idea to just come on for a short run one day and just lay it out for people and just say, this is what I'm looking at, because the reality is putting out a bunch of money to pay a professional to increase sales, to increase my marketing and what have you, is a waste of my money. However, do I have a way of actually compensating? The answer is yes. Ouch. Well, I hope they didn't bypass his heart altogether. He'll walk out of that fine. He just, he's got to take it slow. The one thing that people forget, again, I'm a bad one to talk to about it, is once you've been damaged, you require time to recover. But no, where it comes to that, there is a lot of energy that is available to really accelerate things for people. But yeah, I think that's actually an excellent idea. So I will do that. I doubt I'll be doing it tonight, but one of these days in the very near future, I'll come to that conclusion and sort of sit down and go, this is what I'm looking at. Okay. But I've got to think it through carefully. That being said, anyway, guys, we are hitting the 2-hour mark here. Okay. And like I said, it's been one of these neat little problems of, well, I don't think I've eaten in 6 hours. Not necessarily a wise idea. But Ozzy, all the best for you to your father. Hope he heals well. From my standpoint, I'm going to bring this to a close. I really want to say thank you so much, guys, for joining and for sharing your time with me today. And give me half a second here. We are looking at today. Okay, tomorrow I won't be here, but on Friday, we're going to take a look at orbs and the various kinds of orbs that are there. Okay. Then, now there's a not bad idea. Think what I'm going to do on Saturday. Who do we got here? Christine, how are you? Glad you could join us. Think that's what I'm going to do. I've got the orb set up for Friday. Saturday, the 15th. On the 15th, let's look at the number of different reptilians and different reptilian-based races that are actually there. Okay. And we will, we'll take a look at that side. But like I said, Friday, we'll deal with the orbs. Okay. And on Saturday, we will deal with the number of different reptilian races that we're dealing with. Okay. And then, of course, Sunday, as you well know, is open field. It's open forum. Meaning you have a question on anything, doesn't matter what it is, come out and ask us. In the meantime, I'm going to bring this to a close. I'm going to say thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. And I will be happy to talk to you the next time we connect. Until then, if you've got extra questions, there's a way underneath, listed below this video, to get a hold of me on multiple fronts. Absolutely, if you have a question, drop me a line. Okay, and I will do my best to get back to you. This said, until we meet again, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.